Hello, fictional. Welcome to the Fiction Series X. Today we are gonna see, what if Issei was true White Dragon Emperor? Part 2. If you end up liking this video, please consider subscribe, so without further ado, let's get into the video. Stood in an ominous forest, Issei, Tetsuya and a large blue western dragon are stood at the front of a dark cave. While Issei stood confused, Tetsuya and the dragon seemed to be wearing nostalgic smiles. It's been a long time since you were last here, Tetsuya. Indeed it has, Tiamat. The dragon then glows brightly, her form shrinking and taking the shape of a human. As the light dies down, in the place of the once large dragon, stood a buxom woman who looked to be in her mid-20s with a large bust and midnight blue hair, reaching her knees. The only thing she was wearing was a blue one-piece dress, which did a good job of accentuating her curves. Her eyes noticed the tall figure stood next to Tetsuya and noticed the amount of power he possessed. While it was nowhere near her level, it was still very potent for someone so young. "And who is this cutie?" she said with a lascivious smile as she leered at Issei, who noticed this and blushed. Tetsuya smirked at his son's reaction. "This is my son Issei." Her eyes widened. "If this is your son, then I think I know why you are here." Tetsuya nodded and Tiamat beckoned for the duo to follow her into the cave and led them to what seemed to be a dead end. "It's in here." She put her hand on an indented rock to the left of the wall and pushed down. The wall opened, revealing a large pond. A single ray of moonlight beaming down on the intricate blade, the shiny surface refracting the light onto the rest of the pond. Issei could feel the blade speak to him, calling for him to wield it. Heeding to the voice, Issei stepped forwards and reached out for the handle. As he got closer, he was able to get a better look at the sword, a silver hilt covered with red spots, a large, blue blade with a silver trim, and some strange golden symbols on both sides of the blade. Issei stepped up to the side of the pond and reached out towards the sword. After grabbing the hilt, his eyes widened in shock at the weight of the sword, or lack thereof. Even though it was a large blade jutting out of the small hilt, it felt like it had no weight. "Issei, this is Caladbolg. It was a gift to our ancestors from the Greek god of forges, Hephaestus. Created from the fang and scales of Albion," Tetsuya explained. "It looks really heavy, but it's so light," Issei said, confused as he gave the sword a few test swings. Tiamat decided to clarify. "That's because only Albion's kin can wield the sword. If anyone else were to try and hold it, the weight would be too much for them to handle, no matter who they are. Now all you need to do is synchronize your energy with Caladbolg, then you will be able to summon it whenever you want without having to carry it around." Issei did as Tiamat said and focused his energy onto the blade, unintentionally summoning divine dividing, much to the surprise of Tiamat. "It's done. It feels like I have a part of my body back," Albion said aloud. Tiamat's reaction was exactly the same as Tannen's, surprised that Albion's descendant wielded Albion. After breaking out her musings, she turned to Tetsuya. "I can only assume you came here for more than just the sword, seeing as you could have retrieved it at any time in the past." Tetsuya smirked at her question. "Still as sharp as ever, I see." "You are right, I want to ask a favor of you." Though she already knew what he was going to ask, she decided to humor him. "What might that be?" "He has been training with Tannen for the past 7 years, but we both agree that he hasn't been making as much progress this year as he has previously. So we both think it would be a good idea if you could help train him. I would really appreciate it." Tiamat nodded and walked to Issei as he allowed Caladbolg to float back to the pond. "Issei-kun, we are going to test your skills with a sword." "Hi," Issei replied. They then left the cave into an open part of the forest. Tetsuya was stood a good distance away from the two, and Tiamat had summoned a longsword that was almost as big as Issei. "Issei-kun, call for the sword." He nodded in response. Issei raised his right hand in the air and shouted as loud as he could, "Caladbolg." With the call, a bright glow surrounded his hand, and after it died down, Issei was holding Caladbolg. "It worked," he said in amazement. "Well done, Issei-kun. Now then, let's begin." She then charged forward, her sword raised above her head. When she reached Issei, she swung the sword in a downwards motion, and Issei raised Caladbolg to block, and as they clashed, Issei was pushed back. Tiamat continued applying pressure against Caladbolg, slowly pushing Issei back. "Issei, focus your power into Caladbolg." Issei did as Albion instructed and was surprised when both swords glowed briefly. He was even more surprised when he was suddenly able to push Tiamat away. "It's as I thought. Caladbolg has a similar power to my own, dividing. While I divide power and give it to my host, the sword can divide the properties of other weapons and apply them to itself." Issei's eyes widened. "So what properties did Tiamat's sword have?" "There's nothing special about it, it's a regular sword." "Perhaps you divided the weight of the sword." While Issei was distracted by talking with Albion, Tiamat had already begun charging at Issei and was prepared for another strike. He didn't notice until Tiamat was right next to him, and by then he didn't have enough time to raise his sword to block the swipe, so instead he jumped to the right to dodge the oncoming blade. After recovering, he went on the offensive and flew towards Tiamat with the wings of divine dividing active and sent a diagonal slash towards Tiamat's torso. Tiamat easily parried Issei's strike and struck him while he was unbalanced, knocking him to the ground. That's enough. You did well for your first real sword fight, but you lack form. Swinging wildly won't get you anywhere. I will teach you how to use a sword and how to use Caladbul to its full potential. Thank you, Tiamat-san, he said with a bow as he dismissed Caladbul. I'll see you tomorrow. Goodbye, she said, waving as Issei and Tetsaya left the forest through a portal. Dragon territory underworld. The next day saw Issei stood in a field watching Tiamat, who was stood in front of a large boulder. Watch carefully, Issei, I will only show you this once. Issei nodded. Tiamat picked up one of the wooden bokkens and pointed it towards the boulder. The first part of your training will be to make a clean cut through a boulder. Like this, she shot forward and swung the sword, appearing on the other side as the two halves slide apart and collapse onto the floor. Use just the bokken, no magic, not even to make it stronger. When you have a clean cut, tell me and we will continue your training. Hi. I'm skip 1 month. Hyoudou residence Hyoudou. It was currently midnight. Issei had been unable to sleep because of a nightmare. It was the anniversary of the death of Shuri and Akeno, so he always had trouble sleeping at this time of year. Nightmares again, Issei? Hitomi asked worriedly. He just nodded in response. Issei, you need to let it go. It wasn't your fault that they died. You're wrong, I promised him that I would protect them, and I failed. Hitomi sighed. Issei, I'm sorry. Issei looked confused as his mother put her hands on his temples. Issei's eyes turned hollow and he collapsed to the floor. Albion, I sealed his memories of Akeno and of that night. Please don't tell him about it, it's for his own good. I understand, but if he starts asking questions about it, I won't keep anything from him. Hitomi just nodded and carried Issei to his bed. I'm skipped 2 years. Issei was now 17 years old, standing at 6'2". Instead of the normally brown hair, lay a disheveled mound of silver hair atop his head due to an accident while he was attempting to create a subspecies balance breaker for divine dividing. Issei was sat in his favorite spot after training, in the field to the west of the training ground, relaxing under a tree next to a pile of dragon apples. As he was slowly drifting to sleep, he sensed multiple demonic energies coming his way, only one was familiar to him. Mina-chan. Why is she coming here? The girl known as Minerva was Issei's girlfriend. She had approached him a few months ago and asked him on a date, which he accepted after being pushed by Tannen. Keep your guard up, partner, there's 5 others with her, all are fairly strong. Issei mentally nodded. Are they stronger than I am? No, but don't get too confident. They could overpower you if they attack as a unit instead of one at a time. The energy signatures touched down near Issei and began moving towards him at a much slower pace. Looking in the direction of the devils, he saw a man who looked to be in his mid-20s with black shoulder-length hair. Wearing a pair of black denim jeans and a red shirt covered by a black jacket. Hello, my name is Valerio Marchosius, next and last heir to the house of Marchosius. The people beside me are my peerage. He turned to his servants. Introduce yourselves. The first to speak was a short woman with a sizable bust and long teal blue hair reaching her waist. Her clothing consisted of a knee-length, dark dress that hugged her figure nicely. Zofia Haya, Valerio-sama's queen. Next to speak was a girl similar in size to Zofia, but with much smaller breasts and bubblegum pink hair that reaches her shoulders, and wearing the same outfit as the queen. You already know me, but I'm Minerva Akal, bishop. 2 males, who looked to be twins, stepped forward, both wearing a knight's armor without the helmet. They had light blue eyes and blonde hair, and a sword attached to their belts. Abelard and Eddard Eilis, both knights. The final was a tall man with a muscular build, wearing a white martial arts uniform with a red bandana. I'm the Rokaz Ulrich. Issei relaxed his stance, but didn't lower his guard. Issei Hyoudou, nice to meet you. If you don't mind me asking, why are you here? Straight to the point, eh? I like that, no need for pointless hows and whys. Well, to be blunt, I want you in my peerage. I have sensed your power and I want it. No thanks, he said while walking back to his spot, making Valerio grit his teeth. May I ask why not? I have no interest of becoming a servant. I really insist that you change your mind. If you don't, we will have to resort to more forceful methods. He said in a threatening tone. The knights both drew their swords and pointed them at Issei. The rook cracked his knuckles and got in a fighting stance, while the queen and bishop both summoned fireballs in their hands. Mina-chan, why are you doing this? The bishop sneered. We're dating, so why would you attack me? Oh please, did you really think I loved you? Valerio-sama had given me the task to get close to you, in the hopes that our relationship would compel you to join him. Issei growled and lowered his head so that his bangs were covering his eyes. I can't believe it, you tricked me. Hahaha. As if anyone could love you. The only reason I accepted the mission was because my master promised to pleasure me. He raised his head and glared at the devils. I will say it again, I have no intention of becoming a servant. But if it's a fight you want to say, summoned Caladbul. It's a fight you'll get. Hearing this, the Marchosius heir laughed. I'll give you one chance, leave now, and you won't get hurt. Do you think you can defeat my peerage? Laughable, you look worn already, so there is no chance for you. If you won't become my servant of your own accord, then you will die and join by force. Abelard, Eder, just end him. Yes, master. The blonde knights rushed forward at extreme speeds. As soon as they reached Issei, they simultaneously swung their swords. Abelard aimed for his head, while Eder went for his abdomen. Issei just smirked and parried the blades with Caladbolg faster than they could comprehend, unbalancing them and leaving them wide open for a follow-up strike. No one was able to follow Issei's movements as he seemingly blinked out of existence and reappeared to deliver a diagonal slash to both knights, causing them to collapse to the ground in pain. All of you, attack at once. Complying with their master's orders, Oz jumped in front of Issei and cocked his fist back. Meanwhile Zofia and Minerva were flanking him, while Oz provided a distraction. The rook faked a right hook and instead sent his left fist towards Issei's gut. At the same time, the magic users fired off their attacks. In response, Issei raised his leg to block the jab and created 2 reflective barriers and deflected the fireballs back to the attackers, knocking them out of the sky. Oz then attempted an uppercut with his free hand, but missed as Issei bent backwards and sent his foot straight into Oz's chin, causing him to stumble back, allowing Issei to follow up with a harsh kick to his gut, knocking him out cold. The bishop and queen had recovered and had began firing different elemental magic at Issei, which he easily blocked with defensive barriers. The knights were able to walk again and attempted to take advantage of his distracted state. Noticing this, Zofia and Minerva poured a lot more power into their next attacks, hoping to overpower him long enough for the knights to get a good hit on him. The knights and magic blasts were both rapidly closing in on Issei. However, as soon as they were about to hit, he jumped away at the last second, sending Abelard and Eder head first into the attacks, leaving no trace of the twin swordsmen. Shocked by the death of their comrades, they failed to notice Issei approaching them from behind. By the time they noticed that they were in danger, Issei had already charged his attack and fired it as soon as they turned to face him. The two were sent crashing to the ground, leaving a large crater where they landed. Ambrosius' heir was seething with rage. One man had single-handedly defeated his entire peerage. You will pay for this. He released his devil wings and charged at Issei. Seeing this, he did the same with divine dividing and flew forwards with his right hand cocked back. When the two were within arm's reach of each other, Issei sent his left hand upwards, striking Valerio in the solar plexus, then blasted him with a huge fireball, sending the devil hurtling to the ground. Issei landed next to the crater and dismissed his sacred gear. I gave you a chance to leave, but you didn't listen. Your knights are dead, and your remaining pieces are barely conscious. So take them, leave and never return. After his speech, Issei started walking off towards the trees. His now conscious peerage were pulling themselves from the ground as they watched their king explode with rage and create a large ball of darkness between his hands. Die. He screamed as he fired the attack at Issei, whose eyes widened at the size of the attack. Thinking quickly, he shot his magic bomb in an attempt to push Valerio's attack back. As both sides were increasing the pressure of the attacks, it became quickly obvious that there would be no victor in the battle, so Issei activated divine dividing. Divide. As the voice called out of the sacred gear, Oz collapsed again as he felt his power leave him. With the extra power, he sent a huge burst of magic power down the line, easily overpowering Valerio's attack and sending them towards him. The remaining members of his peerage could only watch on in horror as their king was completely obliterated, leaving no trace of the late Ambrosius' heir. Issei activated his balance breaker and flew towards Tannen's cave to speak to him about the fight. Stepping in the cave, he saw Tannen and Tiamat conversing. Tannen-sensei, Tiamat-sensei, I want to return to the human world for a while. Both dragons were confused by this. Why, did something happen? Tiamat asked concerned. No matter where I am, trouble follows, so I want to try and live a normal life for as long as I can. Maybe go to a real school and make some friends my age. They both smiled at hearing this. Very well, just remember you are always welcome here and if you ever need anything, just ask, Tannen said. Thank you both for all your help. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be as strong as I am now. Don't worry about your things, I will send them to your parents' house. Hi, I'll leave tomorrow morning. Then Tannen and Tiamat both waved as Issei left the cave. Although Issei didn't hide, he was hurting badly inside. Minerva's words had wounded him and all Albion could do was offer word of comfort. Hyoudou residence Hyoudou. The next morning, Issei appeared in the dining room where his parents were eating. Neither of them seemed surprised to see him. Tetsuya was the first to speak. Don't worry about explaining, Tannen told us everything. I have already found a good school for you to go to, it's back in our hometown. Issei's eyes lightened when she said this. Kuo? I haven't been there in years, so I would love to go back there, but won't that be a problem? We're in Hyoudou, which is quite a ways away from Kuo, and we can't move cause of your jobs. His parents smiled. You're right, we can't move, but you can. Hitomi said, confusing Issei. What do you mean? We have found a nice little apartment in Kuo, it's not too expensive, and we'll be sending you an allowance each month for food and other necessities. Issei smiled and hugged them both. Thank you, Aka-san and Otu-san. They were all too eager to return the embrace. You'll start school next Monday. We'll send everything to your apartment, so don't worry about anything. I'm quite surprised actually. What made you decide this all of a sudden? Tetsuya asked. I expected you to do something like this much earlier on, so why do so now out of the blue? Issei sighed. I guess nothing gets past him. Yesterday, the last heir to the Marchosias clan tried to recruit me into his peerage. However, because I denied he tried using force and ended up dead, I'm afraid that the last of the Marchosias clan will send out a warrant for my death. Issei's parents looked worried after hearing this. I suppose you're right, it's a lot safer up here than down in the underworld, Hitomi said before she could continue. Tetsuya interrupted. We can get the details some other time. For now, Issei, you should get ready for when you move to Kuo. Issei nodded and began packing. You do know that Kuo had been claimed by the devils, right? It doesn't matter, that should only apply to those in the 3 factions. I honestly don't see why they feel like they have the right to claim our cities. They should have no problem, the devils won't get very far if they try anything. She nodded. In the next few days, Issei had moved to Kuo and had settled into his new apartment. In one more day, Issei would begin his first day of school at Kuo Academy. However, no matter what power he might possess, nothing could prepare him for his first day of high school. Beep 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 crash. Why did I have to buy the most irritating alarm they had? After tossing out the remains of his now broken alarm clock, Issei went to the bathroom to get ready for his first day of school. After a quick shower, Issei emerged in the male variant Kuo Academy uniform, consisting of a black blazer with white accents over a white long-sleeved button-down shirt with vertical linings, a black ribbon on the collar, matching black pants, and brown dress shoes. His hair was still a disheveled mess, but it wasn't as bad as when he first woke up. Ready for his first ever day of school, he went into his kitchen to prepare his breakfast and lunch. Time skip. After a rather large breakfast, Issei was on his way to Kuo Academy. Along the way he was able to see many others sporting the same uniform as him, though some were wearing the female version consisting of a white long-sleeved button-down shirt with vertical linings, a black ribbon on the collar, a black shoulder cape and matching button-down corset, and a magenta skirt with white accents. As they saw Issei enter through the front gates, the students all broke into a fit of whispers, but Issei's enhanced hearing allowed him to hear what was being said. Suffice to say the reactions were mixed. The girls were mostly saying, "Who's that guy? A new student maybe? He's so cute. Do you think he has a girlfriend?" The boys, however, "Who the hell is that? Another damn Bishan in here to steal all of the girls. Pretty boy." Issei's sweat dropped at hearing some of the threats. Damn, are all schools like this? He breathed a sigh and began walking to his classroom. Hey Albion, do you feel that? If you mean the devils in this school, then yes. Looks like Ka-san was right, the devils have claimed the city. I doubt they'll try anything. They all seem pretty weak, especially compared to the Marchosias boy, and you beat him even after a day of training with Tiamat. Yeah, but still, I'd rather avoid conflict for now. Issei sighed. They're watching me, aren't they? Afraid so, partner. I thought you put a seal on me to hide my power. Yes, I did, but you still leak draconic energy, they can probably sense it. Oh well, for now I'll just act oblivious to the supernatural. And if they do decide to provoke you, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Very well. During his conversation with Albion, Issei had already arrived at the door to his classroom. He shook his head to clear his thoughts and knocked on the door. After a few seconds, it was opened by a man clad in a grey suit. He looked at Issei confused until he widened his eyes in realization and gestured for Issei to follow him inside. Class, you may have heard that there is a new student coming to Kuo. Well, here he is, please introduce yourself to the class. Issei nodded and turned to face the other students. Hi there, I'm Issei Hyoudou. This is my first time in a school, so please take care of me. He finished with a bow and a smile. After he introduced himself, the girls whispered amongst themselves and the boys were glaring at Issei muttering something about Bishanans. The class were quickly calmed by the teacher before he spoke. Does anyone have any questions for Hyoudou-san? The girls all raised their hands simultaneously. Issei pointed to a girl in the front with short pink hair. Hyoudou-san, do you have a girlfriend? Issei's sweat dropped. Of all the questions, why did she ask that one? No, I don't. This caused the girls to scream in excitement. Next to speak was a balding jock who practically screamed at Issei. Name's Mitsuda, why are you here, damn pretty boy? Issei tilted his head in confusion. I'm here to learn, why else would I be here? Before he could say anything else, the teacher glared at him. Mitsuda, that's enough. Hyoudou-san, why don't you sit at the back? Hi, sensei. The school day went on, and the students in his class were surprised at how smart Issei was, considering he had never been to a school in his life. After the first lesson ended, he was bombarded with questions by the girls ranging from vague to personal to extremely inappropriate. So when lunch began, he was all too happy to escape from the classroom. He was currently resting against a tree, his lunch in hand. I never thought school would be like this. You remember what I told you about the dragon trait, right? Yeah, I'll attract girls and strong opponents. Exactly, the girls are attracted to your power, even if they can't feel it. That coupled with the fact that you're better looking than most other guys. Wow, Albion, I had no idea you felt that way about me. You know what I mean? Yeah, I'm just messing with you. Issei felt something strange. Albion. I sense it too. Looks like the devils are watching you. Issei turned slightly to the right and saw a young woman staring at him through the window of an with light skin, blue-green eyes and a buxom figure. Her most distinctive feature is her long crimson-red hair that reaches down to her thighs, with a single hair strand sticking out from the top. Her hair also has loose bangs covering her forehead and side bangs framing her face. Like most girls in Kuo Academy, she was wearing the girl's school uniform. That girl, she looks just like Surzich's. Issei watched as the girl walked away from the window, but just shrugged it off and continued eating his lunch. Old school building. Bakeno, who was that boy? The red-haired woman asked as she sat on the sofa. Sitting on the opposite side was a young woman with a buxom figure around the same age as Ria's, with very long black hair and violet eyes. Her hair is usually tied in a long ponytail, reaching all the way down to her legs with two strands sticking out from the top and sloping backwards, with an orange ribbon keeping it in place, wearing the same clothes as the redhead. You mean the new guy? He's Issei Hyoudou, class 2B if I recall correctly. Why do you ask? Ria's butchu. I have a strange feeling about him. Ria's moved a piece on the chessboard. Checkmate. Oh, I tried to make it hard for you. Thanks for that. I'm going to go take a shower. When you get the chance, can you see if Sona can give me any information on him? Akeno nodded as Ria's left. When her butchu was gone, she began to think about her childhood friend. Ice-kun, it can't be him, they look nothing alike. It's probably best if I move on, he's dead anyway. A straight tear fell down her face. Outside Kuo Academy, Issei was walking home across the bridge when he was stopped by a shy voice. Excuse me. Turning around, he saw a girl with long black hair down to her hips and violet eyes. Wearing a school uniform, which consisted of a dark red jacket with a letter P embroidered in gold, a white undershirt, a red bow, and a green skirt with a thin white strip around the lower end of it. Are you Hyoudou, Issei? The fallen angel, what could she want? I'm not sure, but I don't think it's good. Just play it by the ear for now. Issei mentally nodded. Yes, that's me. I'm sorry, but do I know you? The girl blushed heavily. I don't think so. I've seen you walk by a few times, and I think you're really handsome, and I was wondering if you'd like to go out sometime. Issei was dumbstruck. Huh? You see, I want you to be my boyfriend. Issei was stunned, a beautiful girl just asked him on a date out of the blue. Then again, she is a fallen angel, so maybe she has an ulterior motive. I'll just play along for now. Sure, how about we go out on the weekend? Okay, see you then, she said as she turned to leave. Wait, I don't even know your name. Oh, it's Amano Yuma. Goodbye, boyfriend, Issei waved as she left before walking the other way. As he left the bridge, he noticed a petite girl around 15 years of age with white hair and hazel eyes. Her front hair has two long bangs going past her shoulders and several loose bangs hanging over her forehead, while the back has a short bob cut. She also wears a black cat-shaped hair clip on both sides of her hair. Wearing the Kuo Academy uniform without the shoulder cape. So the devils are watching me, this is gonna be good. He thought while smirking. What are you thinking, partner? I'm just gonna have a little fun with the devils. What are the chances that the fallen angel really wants to go out with me? A very low chance. May as well have some fun with her then, huh? Just make sure you're careful, partner. Issei nodded and made his way home. The Cult Research Club. So the fallen angel has a date with Hyoudou this Sunday. Give him a flyer, the rest lies with him. Ria said, good work, Kaneko. Kaneko nodded and resumed eating her sweets. Time skip Sunday. Issei was stood outside the shopping center, waiting for Yuma to turn up. Issei sighed and looked at his watch. Geez, she sure is taking a while. He was interrupted from his musing when a girl in a cosplay outfit walked up to Issei. Demonic energy, a familiar maybe. She handed Issei a flyer, winked and walked off. Your wish will be granted. Issei blinked twice before smirking. So that's their plan, eh? Give me a summoning circle and let the fallen kill me. What'll you do, partner? It's a surprise. While he was talking to Albion, he was barely able to notice Yuma walk beside him. Her eyes narrowed when she saw the flyer in his hands. So the devils are watching him too. I must destroy that flyer. Hey Yuma-chan. Her scowl quickly turned into a smile, albeit a fake one. Hey Ice-kun, have you been waiting long? Nah, I've only been here for 5 minutes. He took one last look at the flyer before turning back to Yuma. Shall we go then? Yuma nodded, but before they left she asked a question. Hey Ice-kun, what was that piece of paper you were holding? Issei smiled and pulled the flyer out of his pocket. Oh, this? It's an advertisement, I think. Although I don't think I've ever seen this symbol around here before. Yuma was panicking. This could be bad. If he uses that flyer, he won't be a potential threat, he'll be a real threat. What are you going to do with it? Issei turned to her with a curious look. I think I'll just trash it. Yuma breathed a sigh of relief. You alright there? You look relieved or something. No, I'm fine, Ice-kun. Issei smirked, which went unnoticed by Yuma. It seems we were right, Albion. She wants me dead for some reason. Well, let's go, she said before pulling Issei along. But before they went anywhere, however, Issei crumpled up the flyer and threw it away. The Cult Research Club. Ria's visibly tensed and clutched her chest. This didn't go unnoticed by the rest of her peerage. But you at the call, Ria's turned to her queen. Is everything alright? She shook her head in response. The flyer was destroyed. The other people in the room widened their eyes. What do we do now? Akeno asked. Ria's bit her thumbnail and looked into space. I won't let him die, I'll have to follow them for now. She turned to Akeno. Can you take care of things here? Yes, but you. Ria's then left to follow Issei and Yuma. Guo Park. Issei and Yuma were nearing the end of their date. It was currently sunset and the two were making their way to the fountain. At least this Snorfist is finally over. Oh well, at least I can kill him now. Yuma ran in front of Issei. Well, here it comes. If she's gonna kill me, now's her best chance. He narrowed his eyes as he felt a familiar demonic presence nearby, so she followed Issei. Well, it's time to put the plan into action. I really enjoyed our time together, Ice-kun, she said, walking slowly in Issei's direction. Me too, Yuma-chan. To commemorate this special occasion, can you do something for me? Here it comes. Sure thing. She walked right up to him and leaned in close to whisper in his ear. Will you die for me? Phase 1 commence, Issei thought to himself. He put on a shocked expression and backed away slowly. What did you say? I said, will you die for me? As she repeated the statement, a pair of black wings sprouted from her back. It's been fun, toying with your naive little mind. The date was so boring, it only makes this moment all the more pleasing. As she began creating a spear of light, Issei was searching for the devil's energy signature. Typical, not even moving an inch. She plans to sit there and watch me die. No matter, on to phase 2. Issei then sprinted into the forest before Yuma could throw the spear. However, she quickly gave chase. Ria's paw. I watched as Issei ran straight into the forest, with the fallen angel right behind him. I quickly decided to give chase, or else I might not make it in time. By the time I had arrived, Issei was on the floor in a pile of his own blood with a large hole in his gut. There was no sign of the fallen angel anywhere save for a few feathers, but they probably fell off of her wings when she left. It looks like you're dying. Your wound, how interesting. Issei's eyes closed and his hand fell to the side of his body. Lifeless. Live for me from now on. I summoned my pawn pieces and placed one above his chest, but there was no reaction. I placed another, but still nothing, so I placed more on until something happened. The pieces reacted. He's worth 8 pawns. I order, in my name, Ria's Gremory. You, Issei Hyoudou. I resurrect you back to this soil as my servant. And before I could finish the chant, something unexpected happened. His body was disappearing. In just a few seconds, his body was gone. Issei Hyoudou was dead for good, and it was my fault. After collecting my pawn pieces off of the floor, I created a magic circle and went back to the clubroom. But you, how's the new pawn? Akeno asked. I dismissed Hyoudou and Kaneko before speaking, tears threatening the corners of my eyes as I took the seat next to my best friend. He's dead. His body is gone. It's like his body dissolved. It's my fault. If I had taken action sooner, he would be alive still. I couldn't hold the tears back any longer. Akeno just rubbed my back and hugged me. You had no idea that would happen. Just get some rest, Rias. I'll inform Sona that he has died, and she'll take care of the rest. I just nodded and left the room to sleep. I really need it. Guo Park. I said, would you die for me? As she repeated the statement, a pair of black wings sprouted from her back. It's been fun, toying with your naive little mind. The date was so boring, it only makes this moment all the more pleasing. As she began creating a spear of light, Issei was searching for the devil's energy signature. Typical, not even moving an inch. She plans to sit there and watch me die. No matter, on to phase 2. Before Yuma could throw the spear, Issei sprinted into the forest, hoping that she would follow him. After putting some distance between them, he created a clone of himself using illusion magic and sent it away while he hid behind a tree. He noticed Yuma fly past him and land in front of the clone and watched as she sent the spear through his stomach. Sorry. You were a threat to us, so we decided to get rid of you early. If you want to hold a grudge, then hate the god who put the sacred gear inside you. The clone fell to the ground when the spear dispersed. Issei watched as she flew off, the devils moving. Looking back, he saw the same red-haired girl approach the clone with a smirk on her face. It looks like you're dying. Your wound, how interesting. The clone dropped its arms to the side. Live for me from now on. HMPH, not likely. Issei snapped his fingers to cancel the spell. I order, in my name, Ria's Gremory. You, Issei Hyoudou. I resurrect you back to this soil as my servant. And Issei watched, a huge smile on his face, as the devil adopted a look of horror as the clone began to disintegrate. Issei's smile turned to confusion as he saw the look on the she-devil's face. Remorse. Strange. Issei just shrugged it off and went home. As he walked through the front door, his phone began to buzz. Looking at the phone, he was surprised at the caller ID. Kasan. He flipped the phone open and answered the call. Akasan, is something wrong? We just received a phone call saying you died in a car crash. So you want to tell us what really happened? Oh sure, a fallen angel tried to kill me because of my sacred gear, and a devil was going to use her as a way of recruiting me. I just made a little illusion to fool them both. I'm pretty sure it worked because the fallen gutted the clone and flew off, and the devil tried resurrecting it, and believe me, the look on her face was priceless. His mother laughed before adopting a serious tone. I can't see Azazel ordering your death like that. From what I've heard, he's addicted to his sacred gear research, so killing a possessor wouldn't benefit him at all. Well, whatever the reason, they think I'm dead now, so it doesn't matter. If you don't mind me asking, Issei, why didn't you kill the fallen angel? You and I both know you could easily eliminate them. She asked curiously. I wanted to draw the devil out. I had a feeling that they would try something, so I feigned ignorance to the supernatural world, and it worked. Alright, so how was your first week of school? The night went on as Issei told his mother about the week's events. After the conversation was over, Issei went straight to bed to prepare for the next day. Guo Academy the next morning. Is that Hyoudou? I thought he died. The prince isn't dead. Issei faked a look of confusion as he walked through the halls to his classroom. So the devils made it up to cover for what really happened. As he opened the door to class 2B, he saw the entire class with their heads down and a vase filled with roses on his desk. However, no one seemed to notice his entrance to the classroom, so he just removed the vase and sat at his desk. The untimely death of Issei Hyoudou came as a great shock to us all. Despite being here for just a week, he felt like one of our own. He will be dearly missed by all that knew him. Issei smirked as he sat back in his seat, with his feet propped up on his desk. I'm glad you think so highly of me. Everyone who heard this shot up in shock and looked towards Issei looking like they've seen a ghost. Hyoudou-san, we were told you were killed in a car crash once again, he feigned confusion. I've been in Kyoto with my parents all weekend, sensei. Right, I'll go inform the student council about this. Issei nodded as the teacher left. The students crowded around him and began asking questions about how he supposedly died. After a few moments of asking questions, a figure burst through the door and looked as though she was searching for something. After finding the one she was looking for, she ran straight for Issei and grabbed his hand. With me. Turning to the voice, he saw Ria's Gremory stood with a stern expression on her face. What? Why? Instead of answering, she began dragging Issei along through the schoolyard and into the old school building. When they arrived there, Issei saw 3 people, 2 he had already seen before, but one was unfamiliar to him. A boy with short blonde hair and grey eyes with a mole under the left, wearing the same uniform as Issei except he was wearing the black blazer. Rias gestured for Issei to sit on the sofa as she and her peerage sat opposite him. Hyoudou, Issei, how are you alive? Well, I breathe air into my lungs, which helps the heart pump blood. Don't play coy with me. She yelled. I saw you die last night, so how are you here? I know you stood idly by as the fallen angel tried to kill me. Ria's eyes widened. We are in precariously thin peace with the fallen angels. If I had attacked, then it could have jeopardized that little peace we have. I suppose she has a point. I'm sure neither of the 3 factions wants another war. Fair enough, I suppose. Now care to tell me how you are alive when I saw you die? Instead of explaining, he created a clone of Ria sitting on the desk chair, surprising the devils. That's how it's called illusion magic. As the name suggests, I can create illusions to fool people. Issei dispersed the clone. Is that all? Not quite. She stood up and walked to the desk, picking up a pawn piece and rolling it between her fingers. Are you aware of the evil pieces? Issei nodded. She then looked to her peerage. Let's introduce ourselves anew. Hyoudou. Kiba smiles at me after Rias calls his name. My name is Kiba Hyoudou. As you already know, I'm a second year like you, Hyoudou Issei-kun. I'm Butchu's knight, nice to meet you. First year. Taoju Kaneko. Butchu's rook. Pleased to make your acquaintance. Kaneko bows her head. My name is Himejima Akeno, and I'm in 3rd year. I'm also the vice president of this occult research club and Butchu's queen. Nice to meet you. Yufufu. Akeno bows her head very politely. Issei feels a twinge of pain when he looked at Akeno, who barely noticed it. Last to introduce herself was Rias. She waves her crimson hair and says it very directly. And I'm their king, as well as being a devil from the house of Gremory, Ria's Gremory. My house holds the rank of a duke. I know we got off on a bad start, but let's get along from now on. Issei Hyoudou, 2nd year, nice to meet you all. Now Issei-kun, I have a question for you. I have a feeling I know where this is going. Shoot. Would you like to join my peerage? She asked with a confident smile on her face. I knew it. No thanks. Ria's expression took a complete 180. What? Why not? Other than the fact that you were willing to let me die, I don't like the idea of being a servant. The Gremory family are well known for treating their servants like family. That may be so, but I would still be labeled as a servant. Ria sighed sadly. Very well, will you at least join the occult research club? I suppose I can, but may I ask why? The occult research club is just a front. It serves as a gathering place for us devils. If there is an emergency we can use the club as an excuse to sort it out, and even though you aren't in my peerage, I would like for us to be allies." Issei nodded and began walking to the door. "Do you think you could come back after school?" "Yeah, sure," he said as he left the room. Rias sighed. "It's a shame, I thought I would get a new piece." He did have a point, but you were willing to let the fallen angel kill him. "I know, I guess we'll have to earn his trust." School had ended and Issei was currently stood outside the old school building across from Kiba. The two were preparing for a spar per Ria's request, as she was wondering how powerful Issei was. "Sorry Albion, but I'm not gonna use you yet." "It's fine partner, just be careful, you may be fast, but that boy's a knight." I know. Don't forget I was able to take down the two Marchosia's knights easily." Akeno set up a barrier as Kiba drew his sword. Issei put his hand in the air, confusing the others. Kaladbulg with a call, the sword appeared and was promptly pointed in Kiba's direction. "Ready when you are," Issei said with a smirk. Ria stepped forward to start the fight. "Begin." As soon as the match started, Kiba charged straight at Issei and swung his sword at his open arm, but was surprised when Issei easily blocked it. Kiba backed away before running again, but this time he aimed for Issei's back. The devils were surprised yet again as Issei turned to block. However, instead of blocking, he parried the strike to knock Kiba off balance before moving even faster than the knight could and struck Kiba on the back of the head with the pommel of the sword. Issei dispersed his sword as Kiba fell to the ground unconscious. Fortunately, Issei caught him before he hit the floor and carried him to the others, breaking them out of their musing with a whistle. Ria spoke shocked as Akeno tended to Kiba. "Issei-kun, how strong are you?" He just smirked. "Wasn't that what the spar was for?" "Yes, but I didn't expect it to be over so quickly." She looked towards her rook. "Kaneko-chan, are you up for a spar?" The girl in question nodded and walked to the area where the two boys were fighting. "Issei-kun, can you fight Kaneko-chan next?" Issei sighed. "Fine, but don't blame me if she gets hurt too badly." Rias giggled. "You don't have to worry about that, she's a rook, meaning she can't get hurt easily." Issei walked back to the battlefield and stood across from Kaneko. "I think I'll finish this quickly." "Begin." As soon as those words were spoken, Issei charged forward and skidded into a crouched position next to Kaneko. Before she could even process what had just happened, she was sent flying into the air due to a harsh uppercut from Issei, who then activated Divine Dividing and flew above Kaneko before flipping in the air and delivering an axe kick, sending her crashing to the ground. Issei landed and deactivated his sacred gear atop the crater that had formed from the impact of Kaneko's body, waiting for the dust to leave. Rias, Akeno and the now conscious Kiba all watched with the same surprised expression they wore when Kiba was knocked out. When the air around the crater was cleared of dust, the devils all saw an injured Kaneko limping out of the crater, her clothes destroyed from the fight. She winced as she put too much weight on her injured left leg and almost fell if not for Issei offering her his shoulder to lean on. When the two got to the rest of the peerage, Kaneko left Issei's side to be healed by Akeno. "Is that all? I'm quite hungry." Rias shook her head and Issei was about to leave, but stopped when he saw Kiba walking towards him. "Hey Issei, can I try out that sword of yours?" Issei smirked. "What do you say, Albion? Do it, it'll be funny to see their faces." Issei nodded and summoned Kaladbulg, pointing the hilt in Kiba's direction. When Blonde grabbed the handle, Issei removed his grip and the sword instantly fell to the floor. He put both hands on the hilt and tried pulling it upwards. "What is this thing made of? It's so heavy, I can't even lift it off of the ground." Issei put his hand on his chin. "Dragon parts, is that why it's so heavy?" Issei rose an eyebrow in mock confusion and lifted the sword up with one hand. To add insult to injury, he balanced the sword on one finger, much to the surprise of Kiba. Issei planted the sword in the ground when Kaneko stepped up, but no matter how hard she tried, it wouldn't move an inch. Issei snapped his fingers. "Oh right, I should probably tell you that this sword can only be wielded by my kin. If anyone else tries, well, you've seen the result." Kiba and Kaneko glared at Issei, as he was finding it hard to contain his laughter at the sight of a girl only a head taller than the sword, trying as hard as she can to pull it out of the ground. "If that's the case, then who are your ancestors?" Issei looked to Rias when she asked the question. "I can't say. If that's all, I'll be going now." To a park. Instead of cooking for himself, Issei had decided to eat out before going home. He had decided to take a shortcut through the park where Yuma Amano tried to kill him. As he was walking home, he could feel someone watching him. Turning around, he saw a man in a suit glaring at him, releasing a lot of killing intent. The man began to walk closer to him, but Issei shrugged it off and carried on walking home. Before he got far, the same man stepped out from the trees and blocked his path. "This is rare. To meet someone like you in a place like this." The man was sporting a sadistic grin, but his eyes widened when he saw the boy in front of him. "Rainer will have some explaining to do when I get back. She was supposed to kill you, yet you are alive, so I can only assume that you have been turned into a devil. Afraid not fallen angel, she just failed to kill the real me. It doesn't matter what you are, you will die here." He released his wings and flew into the air, creating a blue light spear between his hands. "My name is Donaseek, and you will die by my hand." With that declaration, he threw the spear at Issei, who stood still with a smirk on his face. Just as the spear was about to hit him, he dodged to the side and grabbed the spear, then faster than Domination could see, Issei ran behind him and drove the spear through the fallen angel's gut. Not nice as it being on the receiving end. The fallen angel grunted in pain as he dispersed the spear and jumped away from Issei. Damn brat, I'm not gonna die here. I'll be back, but next time I'll be bringing a few friends. He flapped his wings to leave, but he was stopped when Issei appeared behind him and gripped his wings tightly. I'm letting you live this time, but try it again and you won't be so lucky. Domination flew off as soon as his wings were released. Issei yawned and turned around to wave at Rias, who had arrived just as Issei had stabbed the fallen angel. Instead of speaking to her, Issei left through a portal to his house and went straight to bed. He fell asleep as soon as his head hit the pillow, missing the red magic circle that appeared in his room. Issei's apartment. It was early in the morning, light was bleeding in through a gap in the curtains. Ria's grimoire was beginning to stir as the light struck her eyelids. After yawning and rubbing her eyes, she became quickly aware of the fact that she was unable to move due to the death hug of the boy that was sound asleep next to her. A deep crimson blush formed on her face as she felt the firm grip he had on her rear. She was even more surprised when she saw that she was hugging his head into her breasts, but instead of letting go she just pulled him in tighter. After feeling the shift in his bed, Issei started to wake up. Strange, I don't remember my bed being so soft. He could hear Albion chuckling in his head, but just shrugged it off. When he opened his eyes, he was greeted by a pair of large breasts and fell off of the bed after jumping back in shock. Looking up from the floor, he saw Ria's grimoire staring at him with a smirk on her face. What are you doing in my apartment? Well, I came here to talk with you about that fallen angel that attacked you last night. But by the time I arrived you were already asleep, so I decided to sleep with you. She said calmly, smirking at the growing blush on Issei's face. We can talk about it when you get dressed. Showers at the end of the hall. I'm going to go make breakfast. Rias nodded, blushing at the sight of Issei's bare chest and looking almost disappointed when he left the room. After shaking her head to clear her thoughts, she collected her clothes and left for the shower. Rias had finished her shower, and as soon as she left the bathroom, her nose was blessed with the sweet aroma of a variety of foods, the most noticeable smells being bacon and eggs. She made her way to the kitchen area, practically drooling as she walked through the hallway. When she arrived at the kitchen, she could see Issei and two plates, one with a lot more food than the other. Are you sure you can eat all that? She asked as he placed the plates on the dining table. Issei just looked at her with a raised eyebrow. If I couldn't, do you think I would make all this food? I suppose not, Issei smirked. Besides, this is actually quite small compared to most other times. Ria's eyes widened. I did Akamasu, they both called out in unison as they started digging into the food. So what did you want to talk about, Rias? She looked up from her plate as she answered. That fallen angel, you could have killed him easily, yet you let him live. Why? I wanted to send them a message. If they're smart then they won't attack me again. If they do, then I won't be so merciful next time. Rias just nodded and continued eating. The two finished eating and were on their way to school when a voice broke them out of their conversation. Ah wow. When they turned around, they saw a sister who on the floor. She is spreading her arms wide open and has her face on the ground. Rias narrowed her eyes when she saw the girl on the floor. Are you okay? Issei asked as he approached the sister, holding out his hand so she can stand up. Oh? Why do I keep on tripping over? Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you very much. Judging from her voice and looks, she must be quite young. Issei took her hand and lifted her up, but as she got to her feet, the sister's veil flies off because of the wind. Her blonde hair, which was hidden underneath, falls down onto her shoulders. Her straight blonde hair is sparkling with light because of the sunshine. Then his eyes moved towards her face. His heart was instantly gripped by something strange. Albion, what is this feeling? This girl has a high affinity with dragons, you're feeling the urge to protect her. You're probably feeling it a lot more because you're a dragon with a dragon-type sacred gear. For a while, I was gazing at her. Is something wrong? The sister looks directly into my face with a worried expression. Oh sorry, nothing's wrong. I was just thinking. Issei then noticed the traveling bag she was carrying on her shoulder. It's a rare occasion to see a nun in a town. Are you traveling? No, that's not it. I was appointed to the church in this town. You must be a resident of this town. It's a pleasure to meet you. She bowed her head. Getting placed in the church of this town. I thought it was abandoned though. Issei looked towards Rias and noticed the dark expression on her face. I have been in trouble since I got here. I can't speak Japanese that well. I was lost and other people couldn't understand what I was saying. She holds her hand together in front of her chest and looks really sad. So that means this person can't speak Japanese. I think I might know where the church is. I still have a bit of time before school starts. You do? Thank you. This is all thanks to God. She smiled at Issei with tears flowing from her eyes. Out of the corner of his eye, Issei saw Rias cringe at the mention of God. Hey Rias, why don't you go ahead to school while I escort Asia? I know you have some important club business to attend to. Riaz looked at Issei with a grateful expression and left after whispering thank you. Shall we go then? Asia nodded eagerly and walked faster to catch up with Issei. On the way to the church, they went past a park. Biwaya. The two heard the cry of a boy. Are you alright, Yoshi-kun? It looked like he tripped over. The sister saw this and ran towards the boy. Hey. Issei also followed the sister. Are you okay? Boys shouldn't cry with a minor injury like this. She patted the boy's head gently. He probably didn't understand what she was saying, but the sister had a very kind expression. The sister put her palm where the boy has injured himself. The next moment shocked Issei greatly. A green light orb appears from the sister's palm and was flashing onto the boy's knee. Looking carefully, the boy's injury starts to disappear. The light from her hand seemed to be healing his injury. A sacred gear. When he looked again, the boy's injury was gone and there wasn't even a trace left. The boy's mother was in shock. Anyone who sees unimaginable things will have a similar reaction. Here, your wounds are healed. The pain should be gone now. The sister patted the boy's head and looked at Issei. I'm sorry, but I had to. She laughed while sticking her tongue out. The boy's mother, who was shocked before, shook her head, then grabs the boy's hand so they can leave quickly. Thank you, Wani-chan. The boy's words. Words of gratitude. The sister looked confused because she couldn't understand. He said, thank you, Wani-chan. She smiled happily after Issei translated for her. That power. Yes, it's the power to heal. It's a wonderful power that God gave me. She looked a bit sad, even though she was smiling. It seems like she had a dark past. Issei unconsciously frowned when he thought about it, but shook his head to clear his thoughts. I probably shouldn't get too deep into it. The conversation ended there, and the pair continued walking towards the church. They reached the old church after walking for a few minutes. Yeah, the only church I know is this. It's just as old as I remember. Though I've never seen anyone here before. Issei's eyes widened. Albion, do you feel that? Yeah, fallen angels in the church. Issei narrowed his eyes. So she's with the fallen angels. What are they planning for her? Yes, this is the place. I'm so glad. The sister showed a sigh of relief after having compared their location with the map she had. Oh, so this is the right place. That's good. Then I'll be on my way. Please wait. Issei said his farewell and tried to leave, but the sister's words stopped him. I would like to make you some tea as a gratitude for taking me here. Oh, I'm in a rush so I have to get going. But that she looked troubled. My name is Hyoudou, Issei. Everyone around me calls me Ice. So you can call me Ice as well. What's your name? When he gave her his name, she responded with a smile. My name is Asia Argento. Please call me Asia. Then, Sister Asia, let's meet again. Yes. Ice-san, I will definitely come and see you. Asia bows her head down. He left the place after waving his hands towards her and made his way to school. The cult research club. You shouldn't go near the church again, Issei. Ria said sternly. What? Why not? To us devils, the church is an enemy's territory. To you, it's also enemy territory. The fallen angels are using the church as their base of operations. Well, I have no doubt you can defeat a single fallen angel. A group of them might overwhelm you. What makes you say that? Well, for one thing, they can fly and you can't. Issei just smirked. Riaz noticed this and looked confused. What? Instead of answering, he released his wings. Issei, you're a dragon? She asked, surprised. Yeah, now what was that you were saying about no chance against them? Still, there are 4 fallen angels and an unknown number of exorcists. You should be careful. Issei just nodded. Ara, did you finish lecturing him? Akeno suddenly appeared behind Issei, smiling like usual. Akeno, did something happen? Akeno's expression changes after Riaz asks her. We received an order for a hunt from the Archduke. Abandoned warehouse. Issei was unable to travel by magic circle as he was not a devil, so he met with the devils outside of the abandoned warehouse, where the stray devil was said to be. Smell of blood. Issei and Kaneko covered their noses after she says that. It became quiet. They could all feel the presence of an enemy nearby and its intent to kill. Ice, it's a good opportunity to see how we devils fight. Please don't interfere with the fight unless you have to. Today I want to explain to you the traits the servants have. Explain. The trait servants have. I may as well humor her. He feigned a confused look and Riaz continued. Devils, who are the master, give traits to those who will become their servants. Yes, I could also explain about the history of devils. Riaz started to explain about the current situation of the devils. A long time ago, there was a 3-sided war between the devils, the fallen angels, and God with its angels' followers. All 3 sides had a large army and they fought for almost eternity. As a result, all 3 sides lost most of their troops and the war finished several hundred years ago with no side winning. This seems familiar, oh right, the Great War. I remember him telling me about it when I learned about my heritage. Thiba continued after Riaz. The devils were no exception. Big devils with peerage who commanded about 20 or 30 troops lost most of their underlings because of the war. They lost so many that they couldn't even form new armies. The Keno continued on from there. I heard that most of the pure devils passed away in that war. Even after the war, there are still problems between the devils, the fallen angels and God. Even though the fallen angels and God's side also lost most of their troops, we are still in a position where we can't let our guard down, or else we will be in trouble. Then, Rhea spoke again. Then, the devils decided to use a system to form a small group of soldiers. And that is the evil piece. Devils with peerage decide to use the traits of the humans' game chess to their servant devils. It was also sarcasm, because most of the servants are devils that were reincarnated from humans. Since then, chess became a popular game in the world of the devils. We leave that aside. Devils who are masters are a king. In our case, that is me. From there, they created 5 special traits that consist of queen, knight, rook, bishop and pawn. Since they couldn't make an army, they decided to have a small number of devils and give them enormous powers. This system was made in the past few hundred years, and this unexpectedly became popular amongst devils with peerage. Popular? Ah, you mean the chess rule, right. They started to compete against each other. For example like, my knight is stronger. Or no, my rook is stronger. As a result, high-class devils started to play a game like that of chess against each other, using their servant devils. We call it the rating game. Anyway, this game became very popular amongst the devils. Now, there are even tournaments for it. The strength of their pieces and also how strong they are at the game affects the devil's social position and their peerage. There is a thing called Piece Collect where they gather humans with talents and make them into their pieces. It's very popular recently. Talented servants become their status. Issei nodded, seemingly interested in the devil's history. I am not a mature devil yet, so I can't participate in the official tournament. Even if I could, there are things that I need to go through, or else I can't play. In short, my other servants here won't be participating in a game for a while. So does that mean that Kiba and the others haven't played in that game yet? Yeah. Kiba answered his question. Before anything else was said, everyone stopped as they felt something approach. I can smell something disgusting. But I can also smell something delicious. Is it sweet? Or is it sour? A low voice came from below the ground. Rhea stepped forward with her hands on her hips. Stray devil Vaser. We are here to eliminate you. A topless woman appears from the shadow. But the woman's body is floating. Heavy footsteps were heard. The next thing that appears is the body of a gigantic beast. It was a grotesque being with an unnatural form having a woman's upper body and the lower body of a monster, holding something that looked like a spear in both of its hands. The lower body of the monster had 4 fat legs with sharp claws and a snake's tail. Judging from the size of it, it was definitely more than 5 meters tall. Leaving your master's side and rampaging as you please definitely deserve death. In the name of Duke Gremory, I will gladly eliminate you. You are cunning for a little girl. I will rip your body and color it in red just like your hair. The monster barks, but Rhea's just laughed with her nose. Grunts sure do speak in a stylish manner. Hyoudou. Yes. Kiba, who was near Issei, sprinted ahead as soon as Rhea gave him the order. Fast. Although Issei had seen his speed firsthand, he was still astounded at how fast Rhea's knight was. I will continue from the lecture before. Issei nods. Hyoudou's position is knight. Its trait is speed. Those who become a knight have their speed increased. Just like Rhea said, Kiba's speed had increased. The monster was using its spear to attack, but it didn't seem like it would hit. And Hyoudou's ultimate weapon is swords. Kiba stopped and suddenly he was holding onto a European sword. He took it out of the scabbard and the drawn sword is reflecting the light of the moon. Kiba sprinted away again. Next moment, the scream of the monster echoes. When he looked, both of its arms were cut from its torso along with the spear, blood gushing out of its wounds. This is Hyoudou's power. Speed that you can't follow with your eyes and sword skills of a professional. By combining these two, he becomes the fastest knight. He may be better than most, but he's still a generic knight. All speed and no defense, a single shot to his legs could defeat him easily. There was a shadow near the monster's legs. Kaneko was stood there next as Kaneko. She is a rook. The trait of a rook is its Issei. The enormous monster tried to stomp on Kaneko, but the monster's foot didn't hit the ground. It wasn't able to stomp completely. The girl with a tiny body was lifting up the monster's foot. The trait of a rook is simple. Absolute strength. And also very high defense. It's impossible for a devil with that caliber to stamp on Kaneko. It can't crush her. Kaneko completely lifted up the monster. Fly Kaneko jumped high and punched into the monster's stomach very sharply. The enormous body of the monster was thrown backwards. Same as Kiba, a generic rook, good attack and defense, but no speed at all. Lastly, Akeno. Yes but you. Ara, what should I do? Akeno was laughing while walking towards the monster that was on the ground after being hit by Kaneko. Akeno is a queen. She's the one who is the strongest after me. She is the unbeatable vice president of our club who has all the traits of pawn, knight, bishop, and rook. Ooh. The monster stares at Akeno, who makes a fearless laugh after seeing the monster's gaze. Seems like you still have some energy left in you. Then how about this? Issei felt another twinge of pain as she walked forward. Akeno-san puts her hands towards the sky. Next instant, the sky sparkled and a lightning bolt stuck down on the monster. Gagagagagagagagagaga. The monster was electrified violently. Its entire body was burnt and smoke was coming out from it. Looks like you still have some energy in you. Looks like you can take more. Another lightning bolt hit the monster. The monster was electrified again. It already sounded like it was dying. Even so, Akeno continued striking the monster with a third lightning bolt. Akeno's face while striking down the lightning bolt looked scary and cold, even though she was smiling. Akeno excels at attacks using demonic powers. She could use natural elements like lightning, ice, and fire. And most of all, she is the ultimate sadist. Usually, she's very kind, but once the battle starts, she won't stop until she calms down. How much of my lightning can you take? Right, Monster-san. You still can't die yet, okay? The one who finishes you off will be my master. Oh ho 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 ho. The way she fights, a bishop probably would have suited her. She doesn't use any of the other traits she has access to. For a few minutes, Akeno's lightning attacks continue. After she calmed down, Rias confirms it and nods her head. Rias approaches the monster that has already lost its will to fight and put her hand towards the monster. Any last words? Rias asks coldly. The stray smirked as the red-headed devil approached and her servants lowered their guard. Now. When the stray shouted this, Ria's peerage were trapped in a sticky web-like substance and two other strays appeared from the shadows and walked towards the trapped devils. Kekiki, not so tough now are you, the three monsters laughed maniacally. The new strays raised their claws, ready to strike down the trapped peerage, before they both simultaneously screamed in pain. The teen devils all looked surprised as the two that ambushed them were sliced cleanly in half, along with the web that was trapping. Looking to the left, they noticed Issei stood against the wall with Kaladbulk in hand. The original stray attempted to leave before they all noticed, but Issei ran in front of it and kicked it into the middle of the room. Rias walked up to the stray and smirked. I'll ask you again, any last words? Baser growled. Kill me. That was the only thing the monster said. Then disappear. A gigantic black mass of demonic power is shot out of Ria's palm. It was so big that it covered all of the monster's body and devoured it completely. She's using up way too much power and her control is abysmal. When the demonic power disappears, so did the monster's body. Just like she said, it disappeared, confirming it. Rias makes a sigh. It's over. Good work everyone. Let's go back. The orc left the warehouse and returned to the old school building, whereas Issei just left for home. End of the part 2. So how was this story? I hope you like it. And if you like it, share this story with your friends and like the video too. And don't forget to subscribe our channel for daily awesome fanfiction. Okay, it's time for me to go. Bye bye.